Hello, and welcome to Nighttime Science, a science channel for calm and quiet nights. Tonight, we'll slowly drift into the depths, to where light dissolves into blue and the world becomes soft and quiet. The oceans cover most of our planet. They are older than mountains and older than forests. They are the ancient memory of Earth, where the first life was born. Beneath the surface of the sea lie worlds where time flows differently, in thousand-year rhythms of currents and in gentle bioluminescent flashes of the nighttime ocean. Tonight, we will walk through this underwater serenity, explore how the oceans shape the climate, how they nourish life, and how their depths conceal processes that we are only beginning to understand. If you enjoy this quiet journey, you can give it a like, subscribe to the channel, or leave some warm words below in the comments. It helps other sleepy souls find their way here, one drifting soul at a time. Imagine how the waves slowly dissolve the noise of the day, leaving only peace behind. Let your eyes grow heavier and your thoughts become softer, like sea foam on warm water. Tonight we begin our descent, layer by layer. First through the sunlit waters where the light dances, then into the shaded blue where the colors fade one by one, and then deeper still into places where eternal night reigns and where life has learned to glow on its own. Let the ocean rise within your mind, like the slow, calming breath of the planet. Tonight, we are below, beneath the stars, in ancient waters, where boundaries blur and where sleep begins. Let's begin. Imagine a wave gently rolling across the surface of the sea, and as it retreats, a world of silence begins to open beneath its closing trace. You are not falling into the water. You are entering it the way breath enters the lungs, naturally, calmly, effortlessly. The surface of the sea is a boundary between two worlds, and we cross it slowly, the way one crosses the threshold of a room, stepping into a place where all that was familiar is left behind. Above remains air, wind, the starry sky. But here, beneath the water's skin, the world becomes different. Dense, fluid, soft, like a dream that has not yet taken shape in words. The water closes above us gently, as though welcoming us into its embrace. It is neither cold nor warm. It is exactly what the body needs at this moment to dissolve the remnants of tension. Feel how weight disappears, how the sensation of surface disappears, how the boundary between body and water fades. Your breathing adopts a new rhythm. It is no longer connected to the air, but to something deeper, as though you are breathing not with your lungs, but with your entire being. Each inhale is a slow approach to silence. Each exhale, a release from all that is unnecessary. The light above filters through the thickness of the sea. At first, it is bright and silver, like morning sunlight mirrored by the water's surface. Then it softens, like dusted particles of light suspended in deep blue. And then, it almost dissolves, like a thought we forgot to articulate. We dive lower, and sound begins to change. The underwater world sounds different. There are no sharp noises here, no abrupt splashes. Here, everything is fluid. Even sounds move slowly, as though they too are buoyant within the water. You might hear the soft tapping of waves far above, like an echo of the day that has passed. And deeper, the silence becomes thick. It is not empty. It is dense, saturated, like a deep shade of color. It is a silence in which you can hear your own thoughts so quietly that they stop being words and become sensations. Soft, dark silhouettes pass nearby. These are the inhabitants of the deep, moving as though there is never a need to hurry. And truly, there is no need. In a world where time is measured by currents, there is no meaning in acceleration. None of them are surprised by our presence. They live in this quiet, as a tree lives in a forest, naturally, inexplicably, without ever thinking about it. We descend deeper still. The water grows darker, but not more frightening. Darkness here is soft. Darkness here does not threaten. It welcomes. It doesn't try to conceal. It simply exists, as it always has. Your body begins to grow lighter, as though it forgets bones and muscles and becomes a shape, a figure made of breath and light. You feel yourself becoming part of the space that stretches around you, without borders, without directions. Somewhere above us, the surface moves slowly. There, up above, is the world of people, the world of words, the world of action. Here, below, is the world of perception, the world of quiet, the world of dissolved time. We sink further, and with every meter, perception changes. Colors lose their sharpness. Red turns dark, orange disappears, yellow becomes green, green fades into blue, and finally, only deep blue remains, and then, gentle dark silence. We have nearly entered the realm where light no longer governs, where soft nocturnal depth reigns. And with every moment, you feel your thoughts becoming slow, unhurried, elongated, like seaweed swaying in a quiet current. Here, you may allow yourself to think slowly. You may allow yourself not to think at all. You may simply feel how the ocean holds you, as though millions of tons of water around you are not a weight, but a soft cushion supporting your awareness. The ocean is older than the mountains and older than the forests. It was here when the earth was still silent, when the planet's surface was wrapped in molten plains and the sky was heavy with steam and volcanic breath. When the cooling crust of Earth first became capable of holding moisture, the ocean was born. It was not at first the ocean we know today. It was dense, thick with minerals, dark and young like the primal blood of the planet. And in that warm depth, among chemical reactions we are only just beginning to understand, began what we would later call life. Other forms of matter created stone and crystal. The ocean created breath. It became the liquid foundation of everything living. Imagine the earth in those days. There were no plants, no birds, not a single worm beneath the soil. There was only water, rock, and darkness searching for a way to turn chemistry into biology. And the ocean became a space of experimentation. It slowly blended elements, stirring them with tides and heat, creating the first molecules capable of replicating themselves. Life did not begin from dry mineral. It began from water. It was not born in emptiness, but in a gentle, liquid dusk, where molecules could meet without resistance, where energy could pass softly from one form to another. The first organisms on Earth were microscopic. They had no eyes, no bones, no nervous system. They were simple bubbles of chemistry shaped by the tender hands of the ocean. Yet they were the first messengers of life. Archaea, the most ancient beings we know, were born in the depths where underwater volcanoes vented hot minerals and filled the water with chemical resources. They learned to live without light, drawing energy from the planet's interior as their primary source. Their evolutionary descendants still live at the bottom of the ocean, around the black smokers, where water can boil in darkness. In these depths lies the memory of a time when life did not need the sun, when it arose from the interaction of heat, minerals, and water. The ocean stored the first DNA structures, imperfect, fragile, simple as the first words spoken by a child. But from those short chemical phrases there slowly emerged the language of life. When we look at the modern ocean, we see only the surface, a thin line of light. But below, deep down, through kilometers of water, lie geological and biological archives, each layer a witness to the past. There are layers of marine sediment older than mountain ranges. The ocean patiently gathered deposits, remains of ancient organisms, minerals, dissolved salts, traces of photosynthesis, traces of breath. And each of these layers is a letter in the great book that can be read as the chronicle of hundreds of millions of years. The first photosynthetic organisms, similar to blue-green bacteria, learned to use sunlight and began producing oxygen. At first, it dissolved in water, bonding with iron and forming red layers of oceanic sediment. And when the water could hold no more, oxygen began to rise into the atmosphere. We breathe oxygen given to us by the ocean. Not the forest, not the land, not the wind, but ancient aquatic microlife. Life to which we owe the simplest motion of the rib cage. The ocean is not just water. It is a bioreactor in which for billions of years, the transformation of energy continued unbroken. From chemical to biological, from solar to cellular, from the motion of waves to the breath of living organisms. When the land was still barren stone, the ocean already held life. Microscopic, invisible, yet alive. They already felt pressure, already responded to temperature, already reproduced, already adapted. The ocean became the first school of evolution. The lessons were silent, with no observers, no teachers or students. Only the molecules learning to interact. And that learning never ceased. Later came the multicellular forms, the first soft-bodied creatures, like jellyfish, or drifting ribbons, or flexible structures that could move not only by the currents, but by their own form. And all of this happened underwater. The land was a desert. The sea was home. Even the first fish appeared in the ocean. The first vertebrates in the ocean. The first eyes in the ocean. The first nervous systems in the ocean. When we look at a human being, a complex organism that thinks, remembers, feels, we see the result of a journey that began in water. Our cells still carry the signature of oceanic chemistry. The ion channels in our neurons operate by the same principles as those in ancient marine organisms. The composition of our blood is close to that of primordial seawater. We are children of the ocean, even if we live on land. The ocean is not merely the past. It is the foundation. It is the keeper of time. It is the archive and laboratory where life did not simply arise, but continues. When you close your eyes and picture the calm sea, you feel not only tranquility, you feel a return to the original home. We sink into it because within us there still lives a memory of water. We reach for it not only with our eyes, but at the level of our deepest biology. And the ocean responds with its eternal, quiet presence. It did not vanish, did not pause, did not forget. It was here when the world was shapeless. It was here when life was invisible. It was here when forms grew complex and the first beings arose. It was here when land awakened. It was here when humans emerged. It will be here after us. The ocean is not just a part of the planet, it is its memory. Every meter downward is a loss of light. Red disappears first, dissolving into the blue as if it never existed at all. This is not magic. It is the physics of water softly absorbing long wavelengths of light. We sink lower, and the world turns blue, then cobalt, and then darker still until it melts into nocturnal depth. Here there is no color in the way we normally understand it. There are only shades of depth. Water is denser than air. It gently resists movement, enveloping us like a heavy dream. What would be quick in the air here spreads out, slows down, becomes fluid. Every motion we make gains viscosity. It's as though we are learning to dance in a different medium, where gestures are longer and pauses deeper. But water is not just dense. It grows heavier with depth. Pressure increases, as if the deeper layers embrace us more tightly, not threatening, but convincing us to slow down. At depths where sunlight no longer reaches, pressure becomes a force felt by every living form. To a human body, it seems extreme, but to creatures of the deep, it is simply normal, like the weight of the body on land. Fish that live suspended in the water column do not resist the pressure, they become part of it. Their bodies are filled with water close in density to their surroundings, so the sea does not crush them. It simply holds them, like hands holding a light fabric. Underwater, sound behaves differently. Water carries it faster than air. So here, sound does not fly. It glides, pretending to come not from one source, but from all directions at once. We might hear the click of a shell, the cry of a dolphin, the distant muffled singing of a whale, and all of it blends together into a gentle underwater symphony. It is not meant for human ears, but we feel it anyway, as though through the skin. Water temperature, like light, also changes with depth. Sunlight warms only the upper layer, which becomes a ghostly equator of warmth, felt only where light still dances. Below, the cold deepens. Not quickly, not sharply, but gradually, like the slowing of the heart before sleep. At depth, temperature becomes stable, constant, almost eternal. In these layers of water, one cannot feel the shift of day and night, cannot distinguish winter from summer. Here reigns a cold that is more like a state of rest than the absence of heat. Water is so dense that it draws in sound and motion. Every gesture we make is a negotiation with its viscosity. You can fight the current, but it is easier to yield to it. A current underwater is not merely a flow. It is the breathing of the ocean. It lifts cold water upward and lets warm water sink. It carries salts, microorganisms, and memories of distant latitudes. We are used to thinking of space as three-dimensional, but underwater it is different. It is thick. Here there is no simple forward and back, but forward through, down into, left across. Space becomes volumetric, like clay in a sculptor's hand. Our body feels buoyancy. This force is the opposite of pressure. On one side, depth pulls downward. On the other, water lifts us up. And between them lies a point of balance, where we almost feel no weight at all. This is the point of neutral buoyancy, a state of perfect calm. Here underwater, we neither fall nor stand. We simply exist. Suspended in the water mass like a thought neither released nor held. When color disappears, shape becomes more important. We see not the beauty of pigment, but the beauty of movement. Bodies of underwater creatures seem made of fluidity, of rhythm, of soft curves. Red fades first, orange after it, yellow dims in turn. At a depth of just 1 meter, blood appears dark green, and slightly lower, almost black. Here there is no red, and thus no visual warning. No bright display, and thus no harsh impression. Here, everything is gentle. Even the light that reaches this far is turned blue, and the lower it travels, the more it loses its strength. At hundreds of meters, colors disappear entirely, leaving only tender darkness. In this darkness, there is no fear. There is acceptance. A peace reigns here that we rarely experience on land. Those who live at these depths know them as we know our own bedroom in darkness. Water absorbs sharp sound. There are no loud strikes here. There is no hard echo. Everything is muffled, like through a layer of sleep. Even our own movements feel not our own. They simply occur, as though the body is an extension of the water, and the water an extension of the body. When we imagine emptiness, we picture absence. But underwater, emptiness is presence. The presence of the medium. The presence of gentle support. And when we close our eyes, it becomes even calmer. Nothing distracts, nothing disturbs. We listen to the silence. This silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of space. The ocean knows how to hold us. It knows how to slow our breath. It knows how to soothe. The density of the medium softens thought, dissolves anxiety, blurs the sense of edges, and brings us back to something primal, as though we are water again. And so, as we continue our descent, the world becomes denser, quieter, colder, darker, and calmer. Let your awareness become part of this water. Let your thoughts move slowly, like jellyfish, expanding and contracting in a gentle rhythm. Let your breath merge with the soft currents, passing unnoticed, like the slow internal waves of the ocean. And we remain in silence, not as visitors, but as part of this world. The ocean is not still water. Its body is always moving. Invisible flows pass through it like blood vessels through a living being. These currents carry heat, salt, oxygen, and life. What we call the Gulf Stream is not simply a current. It is a warm river within the ocean, rising from the tropics and carrying heat northward, warming the shores of Europe. If not for it, the climate of the Western continent would be colder and harsher, and where green fields stand, there would be snowy plains. The Gulf Stream moves gently, slowly, but relentlessly. It is like a warm breath the ocean sends toward cold lands, softening their winter. The path of this current is not just a movement of water, it is a path of heat. But beyond surface currents, there are those that flow in the deep. They are like the ocean's underground thoughts, like dark rivers drifting through the water column, far from wind and sunlight. They carry cold, permeating the planet from below like a quiet underwater memory. Deep currents know nothing of wind-driven speed. Their movement is dense, massive, almost alive. They move because of differences in water density, in salinity, and in temperature. Cold, salty water sinks downward like a heavy thought and begins a slow journey through the darkest places of the ocean. These currents are part of a vast mechanism we call the global ocean circulation. In the language of poetry, it could be called the planet's breath. This breath lasts for centuries. A single parcel of water may move along this route for hundreds of years before it returns to where its journey began. Imagine underwater rivers wider than the Amazon, but invisible to the eye. They flow far from the surface, deep in the darkness. We cannot see them, but we can sense their presence in changes of temperature, in faint currents felt by living organisms. Every drop of ocean water has its own density, and that density is determined by its temperature and its salt content. Warm water is less dense, it rises. Cold water is heavier, it sinks. This interaction creates movement, like a slow night and a soft day flowing into each other. And so, water is constantly traveling between surface and depth, between warmth and cold, between light and darkness. This is a slow exchange that never stops. The ocean stores heat. It absorbs solar energy, folds it into its layers, and releases it gradually, as a living being exhales long after the inhale. When wind and warmth above create waves, they do more than stir the surface. They send energy downward. And there, in the darkness, heat becomes a treasure the ocean dispenses with caution. Salinity is another driver of motion. It is created not only by evaporation, but also by rivers bringing fresh water from land, and by ice formed from seawater. When ice freezes, it pushes salt away, making the surrounding water denser. This heavy water sinks and begins a journey around the world, a wandering that cannot be seen by human eyes. Oceanic movement connects the entire planet. What happens in one hemisphere responds in another. Where warm water rises in one region, cold water sinks in another, and they create a balance that sustains the climate of Earth. We live in a climate shaped not only by the sun and the atmosphere, but by the way the ocean moves. It stores heat in its layers and releases it so that winter is not eternal and summer not merciless. Currents form the destinies of continents. They determine migration routes of animals and even influence where forests grow, where rains fall, where deserts emerge. Because the ocean is not only water, it is the keeper of climate. If the currents were to stop, if the water ceased to move, the world would change. Europe would grow cold, the tropics would become unbearable, the ocean would begin to suffocate without oxygen, and the atmosphere without exchange. But the ocean does not stop. It flows as thoughts flow in sleep, slowly, freely, without strain and without hurry. The Gulf Stream is only one of the rivers in this organism. There are others. The Kuroshio in the Pacific, the warm current off Japan's coast, carrying heat northward like a brother of the Gulf Stream on the other side of the world. There is the west wind drift in the Southern Ocean, circling Antarctica, racing around it without obstruction because there are no continents there to slow it. A ring of motion that unites the waters of all oceans. There are cold currents carrying deep darkness toward the surface, lifting nutrients from shadowed layers into the zone of light where photosynthesis begins. We call this process upwelling, but it is better seen as the gentle resurfacing of the ocean's memory. The ocean does not just mix water. It mixes lives, opportunities, future paths of evolution. Where cold water rises from below, colonies of microorganisms bloom. Then larger forms arrive, and then larger still. And finally, the great whales, following the zones of abundance like wanderers seeking a feast. Currents are underwater roads. Sea turtles feel them, crossing oceans without losing direction. Fish sense them, returning to spawning grounds. Jellyfish drift within them for years, like feathers in the wind. Currents are connection. Connection not only within the ocean, but between ocean and sky. Where water gives heat to the air rises, creating new winds, new clouds, new rains. And so the ocean speaks to the atmosphere, like two breaths coordinating in one cycle. When we are within this motion, when we allow ourselves not to resist the water, we feel that the ocean is alive. Not metaphorically, but literally. It is an organism in which every drop has a role, and we are now part of it. Let this feeling grow soft like the weight before sleep. Let the breath become steady like the long journey of water through the global pathways of the ocean. We remain inside this movement, not trying to understand it, not trying to control it, but simply existing like creatures that have swum in this rhythm for centuries. Near the sunlit skin of the ocean, where light still moves freely and the water glows with radiant clarity, life gathers in shimmering abundance. This upper realm is called the photic zone, the ocean's bright ceiling of existence. Here, sunlight penetrates the water like slow, golden fingers, gently stirring the first architects of oxygenic life, the microscopic plants of the sea. The most important among them are the phytoplankton, tiny, drifting, weightless, too small to be seen by the eye, yet powerful enough to sustain the breath of a planet. They float with currents, lifted by water, carried like delicate particles of emerald mist. Yet their quiet work shapes the rhythms of life on Earth. Through photosynthesis, they transform sunlight into energy, just as leaves do on land, but on a scale far beyond imagination. Each invisible cell captures the sun's quiet fire, turning carbon into tissue, light into living matter. In doing so, they release oxygen, not just for the ocean's inhabitants, but for us, for everything that breathes above the waves. It is said that more than half of the oxygen in our atmosphere originates not from trees or jungles, but from these tiny drifters in the sea. Phytoplankton are the breath of the ocean, and the ocean is the breath of the world. Among them are the diatoms, intricate microorganisms whose bodies are encased in glass-like shells of silica. If you could magnify a single diatom, you would see a structure as delicate as snowflakes and as symmetrical as fine crystal. They are, in essence, tiny sculptures of glass, floating, reproducing, blooming, thriving in sensitive dance with the sunlight. These diatom shells eventually sink to the sea floor when their life cycle ends, creating layers of sediment that capture ancient history. In this way, the ocean floor becomes a memory field, a silent archive of vanished diatoms, preserving their fragile beauty for millions of years. The sunlight at the surface is strongest and warmest. It drives photosynthesis, warms the water with gentle radiance, and gives energy to countless forms of life. The top few dozens of meters form a kind of heavenly meadow, where microscopic flora feed microscopic fauna, and through them, all life up the chain. Small fish, larger fish, whales, birds, everything. Tiny zooplankton feed on the phytoplankton, turning floating plants into moving animal life. They pulsate with subtle motions, almost weightless, rising and falling with the tides and the moon. At night, many zooplankton migrate upward, a vertical journey called the largest daily migration on Earth. Billions of organisms ascend toward the surface in darkness, feeding under starlit water and avoiding the gaze of daytime predators. When morning returns, they sink back into deeper shadow, like particles of a dream returning to the unconscious mind. They float with currents, lifted by water, carried like delicate particles of emerald mist. Yet their quiet work shapes the rhythms of life on Earth. Through photosynthesis, they transform sunlight into energy, just as leaves do on land, but on a scale far beyond imagination. Each invisible cell captures the sun's quiet fire, turning carbon into tissue, light into living matter. In doing so, they release oxygen, not just for the ocean's inhabitants, but for us, for everything that breathes above the waves. It is said that more than half of the oxygen in our atmosphere originates not from trees or jungles, but from these tiny drifters in the sea. Phytoplankton are the breath of the ocean, and the ocean is the breath of the world. Among them are the diatoms, intricate microorganisms whose bodies are encased in glass-like shells of silica. If you could magnify a single diatom, you would see a structure as delicate as snowflakes and as symmetrical as fine crystal. They are, in essence, tiny sculptures of glass, floating, reproducing, blooming, thriving in sensitive dance with the sunlight. These diatom shells eventually sink to the sea floor when their life cycle ends, creating layers of sediment that capture ancient history. In this way, the ocean floor becomes a memory field, a silent archive of vanished diatoms, preserving their fragile beauty for millions of years. The sunlight at the surface is strongest and warmest. It drives photosynthesis, warms the water with gentle radiance, and gives energy to countless forms of life. The top few dozens of meters form a kind of heavenly meadow, where microscopic flora feed microscopic fauna, and through them, all life up the chain: small fish, larger fish, whales, birds, everything. Tiny zooplankton feed on the phytoplankton, turning floating plants into moving animal life. They pulsate with subtle motions, almost weightless, rising and falling with the tides and the moon. At night, many zooplankton migrate upward, a vertical journey called the largest daily migration on Earth. Billions of organisms ascend toward the surface in darkness, feeding under starlit water and avoiding the gaze of daytime predators. When morning returns, they sink back into deeper shadow, like particles of a dream returning to the unconscious mind. Where waves break and the water churns with invisible energy, a kind of biological foam often forms. A creamy froth created by decomposed plankton and organic molecules. This foam is not merely residue, it is a sign of fertility, evidence of biological activity. It whispers of invisible abundance, from the smallest cells to the largest beings of the sea. Sometimes, there are blooms, vast explosions of phytoplankton growth that can stretch for kilometers, painting the ocean in swirling hues of jade, turquoise, aquamarine. From space, these blooms look like brushstrokes of emerald pigment on a blue canvas. They are living moods of the ocean, where life accumulates in extravagant concentration. The sunlit waters are full of suspended life. To the human eye, the surface might seem empty, just a field of blue. But if we could see in microscopic scale, we would witness floating jungles in miniature, clouds of organisms, ribbons of drifting cells, and entire ecosystems woven from tiny threads of green life. The ocean's surface is a miraculous interface, a meeting between two worlds, the world of water and the world of air. Across this boundary, gases exchange, energy trades, and equilibrium forms. The ocean pulls carbon from the atmosphere and holds it within the bodies of plankton, within the shells of diatoms, within the slow sinking snow of dead organisms that fall to the abyss. This snowfall of life is called marine snow. It sparkles not with light, but with nutrition, feeding deep-sea creatures that never see the sun. Sunlight nourishes the phytoplankton. Phytoplankton nourish the zooplankton, and zooplankton nourish everything else. This cascading chain is ancient and elegant, a quiet miracle that began in the earliest ages and continues still, night after night, day after day, a cycle of transformation. On the water's surface, you may sometimes see shimmering halos where light fragments into sparkles. These glitters are formed by the angle of the sun reflecting off tiny ripples, but they also carry within them the trace of microscopic life, the faintest suggestion of the great and invisible harvest that takes place here. This layer of water is constantly stirred by wind and weather. It can be playful, like a sunlit ripple, or fierce, with crashing waves. But beneath even the most agitated surface, the microscopic world persists, calm, measured, enduring. To drift within this upper realm is to float among creators, among quiet engineers of oxygen, among architects of life. These organisms do not swim with intention. They are carried. They do not plan. They simply exist. And yet, through their existence, they uphold a planet. Imagine the sun shining down on the sea in a silent golden rain. Imagine that rain being captured by countless unseen hands, turned into green matter, then into nourishment, then into movement, then into song. Whale song, fish schools, coral reefs, everything. In this part of the ocean, life is web-like, delicate, interconnected, so finely tuned that a change in temperature of a single degree can shift entire patterns of growth. Phytoplankton bloom in warm phases, retreat in cold ones, evolving with currents, dancing with tides. And even though they are small, so small that a million can fit into a droplet, their collective presence is a world-shaping force. They are the lungs of the ocean, and in some sense, the lungs of the earth. When we breathe, we draw in their contribution. When we exhale, we give back part of the cycle. Without ever seeing them, without ever touching them, we are connected. This surface is vibrant but also peaceful. It is full of activity but slow, ambient, like a quiet whisper that never stops. If you relax your mind, you may feel that rhythm, the breathing of sunlight through a trillion cells. And as your eyes grow heavier, you can imagine yourself floating in that gentle brightness, wrapped in the green silk of invisible forests, drifting with the current, held by the light, calmed by the endless work of these ancient, silent, life-giving beings. Below the sunlit waters, below even the fading twilight of blue, lies a world of near-perfect darkness, a realm called the Midnight Zone. Here, sunlight is a forgotten myth. Sight becomes less important than vibration, and life adapts in strange, elegant ways. This kingdom of night belongs to creatures that glow, that hide, that float, and that have learned to live under crushing pressures and eternal shadow. Down here, the first light you see does not come from the sun. It comes from life itself. Bioluminescence, the ability to create light from chemistry, is one of the ocean's quiet miracles. Creatures produce glimmers of blue and green deep within their tissues, like tiny lanterns lit from inside. Some use it to lure prey, dangling shimmering attractions in front of invisible jaws. Some use it to communicate, sending pulses of light like Morse code in the dark. Some use it to vanish, lighting their underside so that predators below see only an outline that disappears into the faint glow above. Light becomes language. Light becomes camouflage. Light becomes survival. Among the most haunting forms of life are the deep-sea squids. They are agile shadows with tentacles that seem almost thoughtful as they drift and curl. Some species grow longer than a bus, with eyes the size of dinner plates, the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, crafted by evolution to gather the faintest glimmers of light in the abyss. Those eyes see movement, pressure shifts, currents, the hints of motion that pierce the blackness. To meet a giant squid in its own realm is to witness a being that seems both ancient and alien, elegant and terrifying, a creature that mastered the dark long before humans ever dreamed of exploring it. And then there are organisms so strange that words struggle to hold them. Worm-like beings, gelatinous, translucent, sometimes ribboned with bioluminescent points. These helminths drift with quiet dignity, feeding on the falling snow of organic matter or grazing on nutrients around hydrothermal vents. Their bodies are soft, adapted to pressure by yielding instead of resisting, like dreams molded by water. In this darkness, eyes are optional. Some fish keep them, huge and searching. Others lose them entirely. There are species with no eyes at all, with skin grown smooth and pale, as if darkness sculpted them into beings of pure sensation. They navigate not with sight, but with motion, with the feel of water against skin, with nerves attuned to the slightest vibration. Some creatures are nearly invisible. Their bodies are transparent, like living ghosts. Organs are translucent. Skin is as clear as glass. Muscles and veins appear suspended in jelly. You can look through them as if they were made of water itself. This transparency is not merely beauty, it is disguise. Predators cannot catch what they cannot see. Further down still, where the ocean floor finally appears, something remarkable happens. Amid the cold and the dark, cracks in the Earth's crust release hot, mineral-rich water. These are hydrothermal vents, smoking chimneys of the deep. From them pours black water that would scald human skin. And yet around them, life flourishes in abundance. Here, in what seems an impossible environment, exist entire communities of organisms that do not rely on sunlight at all. Bacteria near the vents consume sulfur instead of oxygen, creating energy through chemosynthesis, a twin to photosynthesis, but fueled by heat and minerals instead of light. Around them gather giant tube worms, white crabs, strange, ghostly octopuses, and beings that glow faintly like coals in the night. These are creatures of chemical fire, born from the planet's inner breath. They prove that life does not require sun or air, only possibility. Some fish in the abyss carry lanterns of green-blue fire hung from rods above their mouths. These are the anglerfish, living traps that dangle radiance in the dark. Their prey, attracted by the beckoning glow, drifts near and is swallowed whole in silence. Others have jaws that unhinge impossibly wide, able to consume prey larger than themselves. For in the deep sea, food may be rare and must be seized when found. Teeth become needles, curved and translucent, not merely cutting but holding, preventing anything swallowed from escaping back into the dark. Down here, metabolism slows. Creatures move sparingly. They conserve energy, drifting like thoughts in half-sleep. Some can go weeks, even months, between meals. They wait and wait and wait, with a patience as vast as the ocean itself. Many beings here are older than anything on land, not in individual age, but in lineage. Their ancestors took shape millions of years ago, finding stability in the constant environment of the deep. Up on land, climates changed, ecosystems shifted, ice ages came and went. But down here, the darkness remained steady, and life evolved in calm, unhurried strokes. Some of the most remarkable beings are tiny, larvae, microorganisms, cells that glow. Others are giants, like the colossal squid, thought to be the largest invertebrate on Earth, rarely seen, yet real as the pressure around us. Its beak can carve flesh, its tentacles can grasp with hooks, its body can disappear into blackness in a single movement. There are strange fish here with bodies flattened like ribbons, others that spiral through the dark like pale corkscrews, some shaped like bladders of gas, others like fragments of shadow. Beauty in the deep is different, alien, unpredictable, haunting. And yet, everything here lives in balance. Predators and prey, drifters and swimmers, lurkers and gliders. Life has found a way not only to exist in darkness, but to celebrate it. With light, with motion, with silence. If you close your eyes, you might imagine floating within this realm, where creatures glow softly around you like quiet stars in black water. Their movements slow, their existence calm, their survival assured by ages of refinement. There is no urgency here, only patience, only endurance, only the steady pulse of life unhurried. In this gentle darkness, your thoughts too may begin to slow. Your breathing may deepen. You might feel a kinship with the drifting forms, with the quiet hunters, with the glowing beings that generate their own starlight in the silence of the abyss. Down here, there is no day and no night, only endless calm, only stillness, only the soothing certainty that life persists even in the deepest places, places untouched by sun or moon. You are now floating in the quiet heart of the ocean, where darkness is not emptiness, but fullness, not absence, but presence, not fear, but peace. Beneath the waves, sound becomes a different kind of presence. In water, it travels faster than in air, not as a sharp vibration, but as a smooth wave of pressure, a broad stroke of sensation that moves through liquid space like an unseen current. Down here, creatures listen with their bodies as much as with any ear. Every pulse of noise is a message wrapped in water, carried across vast distances to beings that understand it in a primal, physical way. One of the most powerful voices of the ocean is the voice of the whale. Whale songs are not merely calls. They are long, fluid compositions, lasting minutes, sometimes hours, shaped with patience and patterned repetition. These melancholic, resonant tones can travel hundreds of miles underwater, connecting whales that may never see each other, but always know where others are. A whale song is a map, a declaration of presence, a poem of existence sung in frequencies that ripple through bone and water alike. Some tones are so low that humans cannot hear them with ears, only with instruments. Yet we can feel them like vibrations in the deep subconscious. When a whale sings, it is not simply speaking. It is painting the ocean with sound, filling the space around it with rolling waves of acoustic light. Dolphins speak differently. They do not sing. They chatter, they click, they whistle. They create bursts of high-frequency sound that bounce from objects and return to them as echoes. This is echolocation, a living sonar. A dolphin can see with sound, detecting a fish in murky water, reading its shape, judging its distance, even sensing its heartbeat. Where whales compose symphonies, Dolphins craft rapid-fire signals, bright acoustic sparks instead of long melodic waves. Whale talk is emotion. Dolphin talk is information. Whale sound travels across oceans. Dolphin sound describes the immediate. Coral reefs have their own voice. Not a single voice, but a chorus of tiny sounds. The crackle of snapping shrimp, the munching of grazing fish, the hollow rasp of parrotfish grinding coral into sand, and the gentle tapping of shells nudged by small creatures. If you lower a hydrophone near a healthy reef, you will not hear silence. You will hear a living static, a bright mosaic of micro noises that, blended together, become a steady, crackling hum. This is a reef alive, busy, active, moving at a microscopic scale. To larvae of reef fish, these sounds act like a beacon. They swim toward the crackling chorus, guided not by sight, but by the biological noise of a thriving ecosystem. The ocean floor has its own acoustics. You may hear the slow roll of sediment shifting with the current, the faint scraping of rocks moving along the bottom, the deep, muffled groan of tectonic motion beneath crust. Earthquake tremors in the deep ocean sound like distant thunder, rolling and ancient. Submarine volcanoes hum and hiss as they release heat and minerals into the dark. Each sound tells a story of movement, of slow energy, of forces older than life. And then there are the sounds of fish themselves. Many species grunt, drum, or vibrate their swim bladders to communicate. It is difficult for us to imagine a fish making noise, yet the sea is full of them, rustling and humming like a forest of branches in the wind. Some fish call to potential mates, some warn rivals, some announce territory, some simply express existence, like voices in the unseen. In the deep ocean, silence takes on a special meaning. But this silence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of our sound. It is a hush where every vibration matters. Down here, a faint click from a crab might be audible 100 meters away. The glide of a large creature might be felt as a subtle pressure wave long before it is seen. The deeper you go, the quieter it becomes in human terms, but the richer it becomes in sensory possibility. Imagine floating there, in black water with no light, only the distant memory of blue above, and hearing the slow pulse of a whale song passing through your body like a whisper of thunder. It would not simply brush your ears. It would move through you, a note felt in muscle and bone. Sound becomes touch. Touch becomes perception. To the deep-sea creatures, this is ordinary. A blind fish does not need eyes when pressure speaks. A drifting jelly does not need vocal cords when light patterns shimmer from its skin as communication. Sometimes, the quiet is so deep that it feels like a blanket wrapping around you. Your breathing slows to match the rhythm of water. Your heartbeat moves closer to the tempo of the deep. The ocean becomes a vast chamber of meditation. Whales sometimes rest in vertical alignment, heads down, tails up, in small groups, motionless except for a slow rise and fall as they breathe. This quiet, suspended posture is like a shared trance, a drifting communal stillness. Dolphins, too, have their sleep. Half their brain shuts down while the other half listens, staying alert through soft auditory awareness. They never fully silence their perception. They cannot afford to, but they transform it into something deeper, gentler. The sound of the sea also changes with weather. Rain striking the surface creates a fine hiss that spreads downward like a sheet of tiny needles. Storms above send rumbling booms into the deep that echo through trenches like phantom footsteps. A calm ocean, glassy and still, creates a muted quiet that lets far-off voices travel farther. In these conditions, the faintest murmur of sound may become detectable at incredible distances. Seawater is not just a carrier of sound, it is an amplifier, a sculptor, a conductor. This is why old ships can be heard long before they are seen, and why whales can communicate across entire basins. It is said that before the age of engines, before shipping noise, the ocean was filled with unbroken symphonies of animal sound. Whale choirs, shrimp crackles, fish drumming, a continuous acoustic tapestry. Even now, that ancestral music still exists if you listen with stillness inside you. Underwater silence is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of dimension. It is a silence in which your own inner voice slows and softens until you are listening to your own heartbeat as though it comes from outside. If you imagine yourself now drifting in that darkness, hearing only the calm hum of distance and perhaps a faint song from a traveling whale, you may feel a soft heaviness in your eyelids, a slowing in your mind. For the ocean's soundscape is not loud, it is deep, not sharp, but wide, not aggressive, but embracing. It invites you to rest, to listen without effort, to receive sound as vibration rather than event. And if sleep begins to touch you here, it is natural. You are breathing with the rhythm of water. You are thinking in slow pulses, like echoes in the deep. The ocean, at this depth, is a cradle of quiet resonance, and you, floating within it, are part of its ancient choir. Far below the surface waters, beyond the twilight zone and past the midnight zone, lies a world of unimaginable depth. A trench carved into the planet's crust where the ocean descends into the Earth itself. This profound chasm is the Mariana Trench. It stretches for thousands of kilometers across the Western Pacific, a long scar formed by the slow sliding of tectonic plates over millions of years. At its deepest point, the trench reaches a place known as the Challenger Deep, the lowest known point of the Earth's seafloor and one of the quietest, least touched regions on our planet. Standing at sea level, we are as far from that abyss as we are from the edge of space. The depth is almost unfathomable, a descent through blackness into a region where water becomes heavy as stone and pressure closes upon all things with silent, crushing force. At the bottom of the Challenger Deep, the pressure is more than 1,000 times greater than at the surface. Imagine the weight of dozens of jumbo jets resting upon a single body. And yet, there are organisms that flourish there. Tiny, resilient, unhurried beings that have evolved to withstand what would collapse almost anything shaped by human hands. The trench is a place where stone and water overlap, where immense geological forces meet beneath the shadow of endless ocean. Here, the Earth swallows itself, sliding old seafloor downward into the mantle, recycling the matter of crust in a slow geology of darkness and pressure. We have only glimpsed this realm with machines. In the 1960s, the bathyscaphe Trieste took two explorers, Don Walsh and Jacques Piccard, down to the Challenger Deep. Their descent lasted almost 5 hours. Outside their tiny steel sphere, the world was silent, black, and unknown. When they reached the bottom, they saw sediment rising like gentle snow as their craft disturbed the seabed. They did not see monsters, nor glowing leviathans. They saw simplicity, stillness, and life in its most minimal expression. Later expeditions returned. Modern submersibles, robotic probes, autonomous deep-sea drones. They found new species of amphipods, living in crushing conditions, transparent and ghost-like, scavengers of marine snow. Their bodies were full of chemical adaptations that allow them to survive in a darkness that is almost absolute. Even at these depths, life remains quiet, economical, patient. Pressure becomes its shield. Darkness becomes its privacy. The floor of the trench is not flat but shaped like dunes, slowly shifting with the faint currents of the abyss. Sediment accumulates here over millions of years, the remains of organisms that once floated near the sunlit surface and have slowly drifted down through the water column, layer upon layer, forming a history written in silt. This sediment tells a story older than any city, older than any civilization. It captures fossil fragments, shells of diatoms, chemical signatures of ancient oceans, a diary of eras in the language of minerals and molecules. The trench walls are steep and jagged, sculpted by tectonic collision. As one tectonic plate subducts beneath another, giant crustal slabs slide downward, like sheets of ice descending beneath a frozen lake. This motion is slow, measured in millimeters per year, but unstoppable. Through these gradual cycles, mountains are raised, trenches formed, continents shifted. Geologically, the Mariana Trench is a frontier of transformation. Matter is pressed downward toward molten depths. Volatile gases are squeezed from stone, rising eventually through volcanic chimneys thousands of miles away. The deep ocean is connected to fire. Imagine the sheer patience of such processes. Rocks bending over centuries, plates drifting over epochs, water pressing downward as though participating in the Earth's reshaping. There are sounds in the trench, but most are below human hearing. The faint grumble of plates, the whisper of sediment, the low-frequency call of distant whales that reach even into this depth. The Challenger Deep is not silent. It is simply quiet in frequencies we are not made to hear. Down here, light ceases to exist as we know it. Only artificial lamps attached to submersibles bring brief illumination, cones of blue-white radiance cutting into a world that would otherwise know nothing but black. When the lights turn off, darkness returns like the closing of eyelids, final and enveloping. The animals of this depth do not need light. Some have eyes reduced to vestigial organs, others have none at all. Their existence depends on touch, pressure, chemical cues, the subtle fingering of currents. Here the ocean is thick with secrets. Tiny creatures feed upon what life rains down from above. Flakes of organic snowfall, minute fragments of death that sustain life in turn. This is the quiet recycling of the deep ocean, life feeding on life, in a continuous exchange across vertical expanses. Some fish have adapted by growing bodies that bend the pressure, that do not resist but accept it. Their flesh is soft, their bones barely structured, not built to support weight on land, but perfectly matched to the gravityless sea. Down here, gravity is dispersed by water. Weight dissolves into buoyancy. Pressure becomes the defining force. Not weight, not light, not motion. Human technology can barely touch this realm. Each descent requires hardened materials, small capsules of air protected by layers of steel or specialized synthetics. Inside, human heartbeats must slow. The awareness that kilometers of water press down upon that tiny sphere creates a profound respect for the planet's depth. Deep-sea explorers often describe a sensation of profound humility, as if entering the Earth's interior shrine. When the Trieste reached the bottom, Picard is said to have spoken softly. We see life. Just 2 words, but astonishing ones. For these immense depths were once thought too harsh, too oppressive, too extreme for any living form. But life was there, pale, small, calm, waiting. As we drift in imagination down to the trench floor, you may feel the hush, the pressure, the peace. Up above, storms may rage, waves may roar, currents may tear at the surface, but none of that reaches here. Below all turbulence lies stillness. Stillness so complete that even thought slows into silence. In this deepest darkness, you may sense the age of the ocean, the age of the earth. For nothing here changes quickly, nothing hurries. Time stretches out, ancient, gentle, almost infinite. If you imagine yourself lying on the trench floor, weightless despite everything above, you are held and cradled by the water itself. You are part of the quiet, part of the patience, part of the million-year exhale of a planet that moves in rhythms longer than human comprehension. Here at the bottom, below all light, below all noise, below all urgency, the ocean whispers its oldest truth. Deepness is peace. Near the sunlit shallows, where water glows with crystalline clarity, there exists one of the most vibrant ecosystems on Earth, the coral reef. From a distance, a reef appears like a garden of stone, quiet and unmoving. But this is an illusion of scale. In truth, a coral reef is alive, teeming with microscopic motion, a living city made not of stone, but of organisms. Corals themselves are not rocks, not plants, but colonies of tiny animals called polyps. Each polyp is a small, soft-bodied being with a ring of tentacles and a central mouth, delicate as a petal, unassuming as a single eyelash. One polyp is insignificant alone, but coral is the triumph of unity. Thousands, millions of polyps build their calcareous skeletons side by side, layer upon layer, generation upon generation, until their collective work rises into sprawling reefs that can stretch for miles. This is symbiosis at its most elegant. Polyps live in partnership with microscopic algae known as zooxanthellae. The algae live inside the coral's tissues, protected and nourished. In return, the algae perform photosynthesis, turning sunlight into energy and oxygen and color. This partnership is the reason corals bloom in extraordinary shades: reds, oranges, emeralds, violets, golden yellows. The vivid palette of reefs is painted not by the polyps themselves, but by the algae within them, a shared life expressed in color. Through this alliance, corals become architects of life. Their skeletons form structures with crevices, arches, towers, valleys, habitats for fish and crustaceans, for eels and starfish, for sea cucumbers and clams, for organisms large and small. To drift slowly above a reef is to float over a submerged metropolis. Small fish dash through coral corridors like swift pedestrians. Crabs crawl over surfaces like careful machinists. Sea anemones open tentacles like blossoming flowers. And amid it all, parrotfish scrape and rasp, turning coral into the sand that will one day become a beach. Reefs operate on scales of time that blend the quick and the eternal. The life of a single polyp might be brief, but as it dies, its mineral skeleton remains. Other polyps grow on top of it, then others, and others. A reef is a cathedral of skeletons, a structure built from patience. Some reefs have been expanding for thousands of years, and in their layers, one can trace the quiet history of growth. A chronology written not in ink, but in calcium carbonate. In this underwater city, communication takes forms we rarely consider. Some fish flash color as language, bright bursts of pigment that signal warning or attraction or recognition. Others release scent trails carried by gentle currents. Some respond to vibration, detecting the hum of movement in the water around them. The reef is not silent. It is filled with subtle sound. The crackle of snapping shrimp, the grazing crunch of fish feeding on algae, the shifting clicks of shells, and the rasp of movement beneath coral arches. It is a steady chorus, alive, intimate, constantly present. At night, the reef changes character. Fish that ruled the daylight descend into crevices for rest. Nocturnal creatures emerge, lobsters waving antennae, octopuses flowing through crevices like living shadows, worms unfurling feathery crowns to catch drifting nutrients. Under moonlit water, corals themselves can appear to glow with a faint, spectral radiance. Some release clouds of spawn, eggs and sperm, that rise like underwater dust, driven by lunar rhythm. For many corals, reproduction happens in synchronized swells, with entire reefs releasing their future into the water column at once. This is not random. It is choreography. It is timing shaped by millions of years of evolution and lunar cycles. A reef is delicate, yet powerful. Delicate because corals require specific conditions: clear water, sunlight, moderate temperature, balanced chemistry. Powerful because they support an enormous share of marine biodiversity. Though they occupy less than 1% of the ocean floor, they provide habitat for roughly a quarter of all marine species. In this dense community, nothing is wasted. Dead coral becomes new substrate. Fish waste becomes nutrient. Slime becomes food. Decay becomes foundation. It is a cycle of constant renewal. When we imagine a reef, we often picture bright daytime color, but color is only one layer of its identity. There is also structure, intricate fractal architecture repeated across scales. The smallest coral branches mirror the shape of the largest. Patterns echo patterns. Life echoes life. The reef is fractal. Swimming slowly over such a structure is like drifting above a breathing garden. Everything moves. Corals sway in the current. Polyps extend and contract. Clouds of minute organisms hover in the water like dust motes in sunlight. And all of it, every flicker of fin, every stretch of tentacle, every microscopic division of cells, depends on sunlight passing through the water's surface. Corals are guardians of light. They capture it, share it, and transform it. Without light, without the algae within them, they fade, losing color, turning pale and ghost-like. This is coral bleaching, not simply death, but the withdrawal of internal partnership. But when conditions are kind, when water is clear and nutrient balanced, when temperature is steady and light abundant, reefs thrive with a calm exuberance. Towers of coral grow upward, branching and spreading. Sponges flower open. Sea fans sway like banners. Urchins dart and graze. And fish weave through coral avenues in a dance as old as the ocean itself. Coral reefs are reminders that life does not only adapt, it collaborates. Polyps and algae together. Fish and coral together. Predator and prey in balance. Underwater, this cooperation feels natural, inevitable. It is the rhythm of existence in a world where everything touches everything else. As you picture this reef now, you may feel your body soften, your breath join the rhythm of slow underwater flow. Your thoughts may drift as fish drift, quietly, purposefully, without urgency. Nothing in the reef rushes, yet everything thrives. You are now floating in this living architecture, held by the gentle clarity of shallow water, surrounded by color and calm. And perhaps you can imagine the slow heartbeat of the reef, steady, harmonious, and ancient. The ocean does not merely sit on the planet, it breathes with it. Water moves across the globe, carrying heat, carrying nitrogen, carrying carbon, carrying life. It is not just a reservoir, it is a lung, a heart, a circulatory system that regulates the Earth's body. When sunlight touches water, countless microscopic organisms begin their quiet work. Tiny drifting plants, phytoplankton, draw in carbon dioxide, split it, and release oxygen. This is photosynthesis on a planetary scale, occurring not in forests or jungles, but in open water where the air and sea exchange breath. More oxygen comes from the ocean than from all the rainforests combined. When you take a breath right now, there is a high chance that much of that oxygen was made by something floating in the sea. In this sense, we inhale the exhalation of the ocean. We are connected to it with every breath. Our lungs quietly cooperating with microscopic plants we can barely imagine. The ocean is also the planet's memory of temperature. Water absorbs heat and holds it for long periods of time. This stored heat is slowly released through currents and winds, keeping winters milder and summers tempered in many parts of the world. Without the ocean's thermal capacity, the Earth's climate would swing wildly. Too cold, then too hot, unstable and hostile. But the ocean smooths these rhythms, balancing them like a calming heartbeat. Evaporation from the ocean feeds the clouds. Clouds drift and become rain. Rain falls upon lands, fills rivers, carves valleys, irrigates forests, feeds soils. And then that water returns to the ocean again, carrying with it minerals, nutrients, and the chemical signatures of the earth. This cycle is not random. It is choreography, ancient and continuous. The ocean pulls carbon from the atmosphere and buries it in deep water and in sediments on the seafloor. Shells of dying organisms made from calcium carbonate sink and trap carbon in solid mineral form. Layer by layer, these remains build slow monuments of stone, limestone, chalk, marine deposit, page after page of planetary history. Some of the chalk cliffs that rise above beaches on land were once part of the ocean's floor millions of years ago, formed from the accumulated shells of prehistoric microscopic life. In this way, the ocean is a timekeeper, tracking ages not by human calendars, but by chemical archives. When the wind blows across the sea, it stirs the surface and speeds evaporation. Warm water rises, cooler water sinks. This vertical motion is part of the ocean's breath, a gentle inhalation and exhalation that circulates nutrients from depths to surface and from surface to depths. Nutrients carried upward feed phytoplankton. Phytoplankton feed zooplankton. Zooplankton feed fish. Fish feed larger fish. Larger fish feed apex predators. And at the end, decomposition returns all of it back into the water to begin again. Life in the ocean moves in circles, not in straight lines. Currents distribute warmth across hemispheres, like veins distributing blood. The Gulf Stream carries heat from the Caribbean to Europe. Cold water from Antarctica settles into deep basins and travels northward beneath the surface, bringing nutrients from below. These movements are not guesswork. They are steady, predictable, driven by the physics of density and temperature. Warm water expands slightly, becoming lighter. Cold, salty water grows dense and sinks. The ocean organizes itself through these invisible balances. Rainfall patterns on continents are influenced by evaporation from distant seas. Even deserts receive moisture originally lifted from tropical waters. A raindrop falling on your window might have begun as part of the Pacific, or as part of the Indian Ocean, or as part of the Atlantic. Water remembers, not through consciousness but through continuity. The ocean also absorbs sound and motion. Storm energy can dissipate into waves and currents over hours or days. Tsunamis cross entire ocean basins with the silent certainty of earthbound wind. Sometimes, the ocean becomes perfectly calm, reflecting the sky like a mirror. At other times, it becomes a field of marching waves driven by steady wind. And in rare moments, it rises in great swells that travel thousands of miles without breaking, like long inhalations moving across the world. Whales use this acoustic world to navigate across distances larger than continents. Their voices flow through the water like languages spoken in deep tones that resonate through bone and fluid. Phytoplankton, in contrast, speak only in chemistry. They fix carbon, emit oxygen, and quietly dictate the very composition of the air. Tiny organisms govern enormous cycles, like small gears turning massive machines. The ocean is not passive. It shapes continents through tides and erosion. It moderates temperatures through vapor and heat exchange. It creates weather through its interaction with air. It generates oxygen through photosynthesis. It absorbs carbon through biological capture. This watery planet is not simply hosting life. It is making life, breathing life, recycling life. And we are part of its breath. Every inhale we take is a soft echo of a chemical reaction in the sea. Every drop of water we drink spent time in the ocean at some point in its cycle. Even human blood contains salt in a concentration strikingly similar to that of ancient seas. We carry the ocean in our veins, not symbolically, but chemically. When we float in the ocean, we are not intruders. We are returning. We are signaling to the body something it has known for hundreds of millions of years. That water was our first home. If the ocean were to stop moving, if currents halted, if the breathing cycle fell still, the climate would collapse into chaos. Heat would pool in stagnant zones. Water would stratify. Life would suffocate. But the ocean keeps breathing because the planet keeps breathing. It is a slow rhythm, older than mountains, older than forests, older than human memory. If you let your mind drift with this rhythm, you may feel that your own breath is matching the seas. A long inhale, a slower exhale, like waves arriving and waves retreating. The ocean's breath becomes your breath. The earth's heartbeat becomes your heartbeat. And as sleep begins to settle upon you, you can imagine being gently carried through this global circulation, like a small particle of water riding currents from one hemisphere to the other, from warmth to coolness, from light to twilight. There is no hurry, no urgency, only the patience of water doing what it has always done, connecting everything to everything. The ocean is not only a physical world, it is also a reflection of our inner one. When we watch waves, we often feel something familiar, as though we are looking at a landscape we somehow recognize without ever having been submerged in it. In many ways, the mind resembles the sea. Thoughts drift like currents. Memories accumulate like sediments. Emotions surface like tides, and consciousness itself moves in waves of awareness and rest, clarity and obscurity. At the top of the ocean is the surface, bright, visible, active. Here exist the thoughts we notice, the ideas we speak aloud, the impressions we form. This is our waking consciousness. The sparkling water where sunlight dances and ripples reflect the sky. But beneath the surface lies the subconscious, vast, dark, and quiet. It is a region we rarely explore intentionally. Here dwell forgotten experiences, intuitive impressions, underlying beliefs that shape our feelings without speaking aloud. Just as sunlight fades with depth, our awareness dims as we move inward. Thoughts become feelings. Feelings become sensations. Sensations become wordless presence. In the deepest layers lies something even more profound, the unconscious, that place of instinct and imagery beyond articulation. It is the trench of the mind where inner pressure is great and light is scarce, where meanings exist without words, where emotion becomes essence. Many ancient traditions recognized this parallel, that descending into oneself is like descending into the ocean. The calmer the surface, the clearer the deeper layers become. A turbulent ocean hides its depths beneath foam and crash. A turbulent mind hides its deeper truths beneath noise and agitation. But when the water stills, when the surface becomes glass, then and only then can we see into the blue below. Only in calmness can depth be perceived. In this sense, the act of falling asleep is like sinking beneath the surface. We begin in conscious thought, then gradually descend into slower rhythms, into drifting imagery, into internal landscapes. Sleep is not an absence, it is a deepening. You may notice how thought loses structure at night. A sentence begins and ends as a picture. A picture dissolves into a feeling, and the feeling turns into a dream that speaks through symbols rather than syllables. Dreams are the whales of the subconscious. They rise from deep regions and breach for a moment into waking awareness. We recall fragments, a face, a place, a sensation. Then they sink back into dark water. Just as the ocean keeps its secrets, the mind also keeps storerooms of memory we seldom access consciously. Yet they shape us. They are the silent tectonics beneath personality. The surface mind might say, "I don't know why I feel this way." But deep within, the reason is known. It has simply not risen to the surface. This is why stillness, meditation, quiet moments, and intentional calm let us hear deeper thoughts as though straining our ear to the ocean floor. When we sit by the sea, listening to its rhythm, our breathing unconsciously synchronizes with the waves. Inhale, exhale, like tide advancing and retreating. Breathing is the tide of the body. The ocean is the breath of the earth. And consciousness is the tide of the mind. When we are awake, thoughts wash across the surface like waves. When we sleep, the tide recedes and deeper waters emerge. Much like the ocean's depths, the unconscious mind does not communicate in normal language. It speaks in metaphor, in sensation, in intuitive knowing. It understands the world in gestures, not grammar. When a person says, "I feel the answer," they are drawing from this deeper realm. When they say, "I don't know why, but I know," they are hearing currents from the subconscious. We are layered beings, just as the ocean is layered, and every layer has its own role. At the surface, we live. Below, we dream. Deeper still, we are. The deepest self does not speak or narrate or analyze. It simply exists, calm, aware, timeless. Imagine now for a moment your mind as a vast ocean. Your thoughts like slow waves carrying the debris and foam of recent awakenings. Beneath them lie quieter waters where you sense rather than think. And beneath those lies pure stillness, where awareness rests without content, without form. When we sleep, we surrender the surface and enter this quiet depth. We stop trying to control thought, and thought becomes fluid, weightless, like a ribbon of current drifting through space. Memory becomes soft. Time becomes slippery. You may dream of a moment from childhood as though it is happening now, because in the deep mind, past and present do not exist as separate. You may dream of places you have never seen, because imagination draws from deep sediment of possibility. You may dream of impossible logic made natural, because the deep mind is not bound by gravity of waking interpretation. Just as fish in the dark do not need eyes, the unconscious does not need logic. It moves through a different kind of clarity. The ocean erases distinction between beginning and end. So does sleep. So does the deep mind. And the deeper you go, the quieter everything becomes. Not empty, but peaceful, full of presence and free of noise. This is why, right before deep sleep, thoughts feel like they are drifting away into a soft horizon. You stop grasping at them. You stop following them. You simply float downward into mental silence. The ocean claims you gently. It closes behind you like a lid of water closing overhead. You drift deeper and deeper and deeper still, releasing tension, releasing attention, releasing shape into shapelessness. The self becomes fluid, edges blur. You stop being a thinker and become a listener, listening to the rhythms of breath, the distant hum of heartbeat, the resonance of inner stillness. You become like a creature of the deep, sensing rather than reasoning, feeling rather than naming, existing rather than performing. And perhaps in this depth, you realize something gentle and true. That thoughts are temporary, but awareness is constant. That emotions are waves, but consciousness is the ocean. You are not the turbulence on the surface. You are the depth beneath it. As you relax into this knowing, sleep becomes effortless. You are no longer trying to sleep. You are simply letting go, letting weight dissolve, letting identity become soft and boundaryless. You are sinking into the calmness of your own inner sea. Let yourself drift. You are safe here. You are held by the oldest element that ever embraced life. Let your breathing become slow and tidal. Let your eyelids grow heavier like sediment settling. Let your mind descend past thinking, past language, past dream shape, into pure rest. You are entering the quiet deep of your inner ocean, where timeless peace waits patiently, like still water at the ocean floor. You can begin to let go now. You don't need to remember anything. You don't need to follow the thoughts anymore. You can simply float in the comfortable dark of your mind, just as a tiny shell floats in calm, shallow water. Let the voice become softer, less distinct, less important, because you are drifting past it now, into a deeper quiet that doesn't need words. You might feel as if the ocean is gently rocking you, forward, back, like a cradle made of water. Your breathing falls into rhythm with it, a slow wave, arriving, departing, returning, receding. Inhale, like the water climbing the shore. Exhale, like the tide flowing back to sea. Nothing is required of you. Nothing is expected. You have done enough for today. You can rest. Your eyelids grow heavier, not because you force them, but because they choose to soften and sink like petals closing at dusk. You can allow your muscles to let go completely, as if they are dropping downward through layers of water, sinking gently, deeper and deeper. Your hands don't need to hold anything. Your shoulders don't need to carry anything. Your mind doesn't need to solve anything. Everything can simply stop for a while. You are drifting, without effort, without direction, like plankton riding a soft current. You may notice how thoughts become lighter, more transparent, as though they're made of mist. They rise and fade and disappear without needing attention. You don't have to follow them. You can let them go. They know the way. Now even the sound of this voice begins to blur, like something heard underwater, the meaning dissolving into sensation, into vibration, into softness. If there are any feelings in your body, you can simply let them drift through you, not clinging, not resisting, just observing as you float deeper into a gentle darkness that protects you. Your breath now is the quiet wave of a sleeping ocean. Slow, deep, steady, Perhaps you can imagine lying on the ocean floor, weightless and safe, enveloped in calm, surrounded by peaceful dark. The world above is far away now, like a faint memory. You don't need it at this moment. Here there is only quiet and softness and the feeling of being held by something ancient and kind. You can almost stop listening entirely. You can let the words turn to murmurs and the murmurs to silence. There is nothing to hold on to because you are supported. You are buoyed. You are floating. And now, even breathing becomes effortless, as though your body breathes itself without thought. With each breath, you descend another layer into deep, restorative calm, where sleep is waiting like soft arms open to receive you. You don't need to arrive quickly. You can drift down gradually, like a feather turning in slow spirals on its way to rest. Your thoughts now are like particles in dark, peaceful water. They drift, they hover, they dissolve. You are the ocean. You are the quiet. You are the depth beneath all the waves. And now, the voice itself recedes into the background, like music heard from far away, until it becomes barely a hum, barely a presence, barely a whisper. You can sleep now. The ocean will stay with you. Your breath will carry you. Your mind will cradle you. And in this quiet, you are deeply safe, deeply calm, and deeply at rest. Let yourself go, completely. You don't need to return to the surface until morning light. Now, there are no more instructions, no more images, no more thoughts. There is only softness and darkness and sleep. The voice fades, the consciousness floats, and you drift into the warm dark of oceanic night within you. Good night, gentle dreamer. Good night.